still in the same place. So it looks like this one holds 0.
All right, welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be talking about these two sights right here. Now, this is the Osight X, and this is the Osight S. Now, on this earlier model, that is the Olight branded one, they did have some issues, and a lot of other channels and a lot of other reviewers did have some issues with these, so it's worthwhile to go, I think, watch those reviews. But again, mine worked perfectly fine. It did have some negatives, but again, if you want a full picture of everything, go watch a whole bunch of videos about it. So they asked me if I would be interested in reviewing these sites, and full disclosure, both of these sites were sent to me for free. I didn't pay anything, so, you know, there's that. I'm still going to be as unbiased as I possibly can be, but I thought you would want to know that. I was actually pretty intrigued with these optics because, one, this optic right here, this is the Osight S. This is basically their small model that's for subcompact guns or the slimline guns, like this is the Glock 43X. This is a direct competition, at least in my opinion, for this Holosun EPS carry. Now, if you watched my review on this optic, I really like this optic. It's probably my favorite optic to date. I didn't really notice any negatives with it. Now, this one is a complete, I don't know what you'd call it. It's direct competition for that. And it's the only optic I know of that is actually competition for this Holosun. Now, the Holosun, as you know, for the EPS carry and the EPS just series in general, they are fully enclosed, but they are essentially the same size as a full or a regular red dot. They're not, you know, the big giant chunky mailboxes. And Olight essentially did the same thing that they did when it comes to how they designed it. So if you look at right here, it is fully enclosed, so you can see that shine right there. That's the rear lens on the back, and it has a front lens on the front. So it is fully enclosed, which means dust, lint, all kinds of crud are not going to get in there, which I really like in a sight. For a concealed carry or a duty optic, in my opinion, I think you should use an enclosed optic. I don't think there's any real reason not to use an enclosed optic at this point. So it's nice to see that the EPS carry has some competition now that is at a more reasonable price. This one, I believe, is around $350, if I remember correctly. Their models vary depending on if they have the solar panel, all that kind of stuff. So having something that's a little bit more affordable, at least as competition, at the very least will drive down prices for something like this. So one thing I noticed about this immediately is the window is, well, it's not substantially larger, but it is a lot larger than the EPS, at least based on look. So if you look through here, you can see here's the EPS carry, and then here is the Osight S. It's not a huge difference, but you can tell like the walls of the housing here are a lot thicker on the EPS carry versus this one, they're a lot thinner. Now that does raise concerns for me about durability. You know, if you were to drop this thing on hard dirt or concrete or wood or whatever, would this actually protect the lenses? I don't know. I'm sure we'll find out from somebody on some YouTube channel who's going to absolutely destroy one of these things. All right, one thing out of the box I will say, I'll go over the features and my initial impressions of just kind of the features and how they work. I do like the fact that it's enclosed. I like that on the S. The X model obviously is not enclosed. As you can see on here, it is almost a, I guess, product improved Osight, the original one. The window is still large. It's tall. Part of that is to accommodate the charging port and everything else. But honestly, if you're going to make an optic bigger, like the window itself, I prefer it actually be taller versus wider. That's just personal preference because recoil wise, you can keep track of the dot easier as it recoils. You can see on here, the window is pretty good size. It's not huge. It's not like comedic, you know, like some of the mailbox. Some people will say this thing is ridiculously tall. It's not any taller than all those mailbox optics that are on the market. And you can actually technically co-witness Glock sights with this because it, at least on this one, will direct thread or a direct mount to a RMR cut. So that's nice. If you're looking for something that you don't need suppressor height sights, this is, you know, a decent option. So let's compare. We'll compare this one first. So here's the original Osight. You can see, maybe you can see this, maybe you can't, but this one has more of a pink coating on the lens. This one has more of a, yeah, you can kind of see right there, has more of a red coating on the lens. So I assume they use a better coating on the lens, and looking through here between the two, you don't really notice an issue. I did notice a little bit of fishbowling around the edges of this one, especially near the top of the glass whenever I was shooting with it before, versus with the new X model, I did not notice fishbowling at all. There is a slight amount It's enough to where if you're looking for it, you're going to see it. But just presenting it and kind of, you know, moving around the house or whatever, when I was just playing with the thing, I didn't notice it at all. It's only there if, you know, if you're really OCD about it, you're going to notice it. But practically speaking, it's not noticeable. The S, on the other hand, has basically zero. I don't know if you can see that. Like, there is zero fishbowling whatsoever. And all the edges have pretty good glass clarity from what I can tell so far. Again, maybe I'll notice something at the range, but we'll find that out together. So the glass clarity on them is fine. This one has really, really clear glass. And compared to the Holosun, I showed these earlier, the Holosun has a little bit more tinting, just a slight amount. And again, that's just for battery life. It doesn't really matter, in practically speaking, versus the Osight is actually a lot, well, not a lot, but it is noticeably less blue. I don't know if this will show up on camera or not. Let's see if I can aim it over there, that thing. Yeah, you can kind of see. This one's more blue. This one's obviously a lot clearer, true to color. So if that matters to you, that's there. The detents on the turrets, the windage and elevation on both of them are audible, but you have to kind of listen for it. Like, it's quiet, but you can hear them. Okay, well, Osight, here is a criticism for you that I just now discovered. Make the sensor, the photo sensor for the auto adjuster, the same on this one as you did on this one. So this one has that little kind of ramp that sensor is sitting on, so it's pointing more up. This one is pointing directly forward. So if you could put that sensor, or just, you know, change the angle of the material, grind a, you know, a little bit more at an angle, and put that sensor at a 45-degree angle, this would remedy that problem. But the problem, I had the exact same issue with the original Osight as I did on this X, is based on where it's at, it's not bright enough. It's usable without any weapon light, and it's usable indoors in well-lit areas. But the moment you go into a brighter area or a dim area, or you try to use any sort of weapon light, like say this TLR1HL or something like this, this is the Olight, this is the PL Turbo. Basically, it's a competition for the Surefire Turbo, which I actually really like this light. It's pretty good for what it is, but it has a very high candela hotspot. And this sensor, the auto adjust mode, does not, it basically washes out entirely. So if you have like a turbo style light where it has high candela, 100% not usable on the auto adjusting. If you have something like this TLR1 or like a Streamlight TLR7 or something where it's lower lumens and it's kind of more floody, not all focused, it kind of still works, but you're really struggling to see that light. So on the X, I would say that the auto adjusting feature is completely unusable as it is. Now, one thing that they did is they added 3 levels of adjustability on the auto adjust. So you can have it on either where it stays standard, or you can go down a level, or you can go up a level. What they need to do on this one, it would alleviate that if they don't want to redesign the sensor and where it's pointed, is just add 2 or 3 more adjustments up in brightness for the auto adjust, and that would fix that to where it would be usable pretty much in every situation. Because on this one, on the brightest, looks how this one does on the lowest setting. So this one being 2 settings higher, essentially based on looks, is usable. It's still not quite bright enough for me. I would prefer this one to have 1 more adjustability up. I mean, if you want to add 2, then great, add 2, because everyone, you know, it's different. Again, I haven't used these in sunlight or anything yet, so we'll see how that does. But just going around the house, using the flashlight that's on there and other lights in various conditions, dark, light, you know, this one was completely usable. I just personally would like it to get a little bit brighter. Now, one thing I did notice about the auto adjusting, it does delay. So if you point it, boom, you point, now it kind of delays. It's probably a half second, you know, of time for it to detect the light and then adjust. It's not instantaneous. The only optic I've ever used that has really good light sensing capability is this CUDA. You can see how massive that light sensor is. It's huge. This thing auto adjusts immediately. I could not tell when this thing changed brightness, because it was immediate. That's the only optic I've ever actually liked the auto adjusting and that was actually instantaneous. I'm sure there's others, but this one, there is a slight delay. Is that a big deal? Honestly, no, because by the time you point at whatever it is and you find the dot, like, it's adjusted. So it's not a big deal, but I thought that is worth mentioning. All right, and full disclosure again, this is the second Osight X that I have received. This one, I actually sent back the other one so they could figure out what was wrong with the thing. But the first one I had to send back because the battery, the internal battery, would not charge. And I actually tested this battery bank and the original battery bank that came with the Osight. You can see there's two different ones. That one says Olight on the side. The new one says Osight on the side, and it has a few different improvements. There's a little lanyard hole and, you know, some geometry changes, but essentially they're the same thing. But whenever you click on here, you can see right now it's saying it's fully charged. Whenever you put it on the Optic, it will tell you the level of the Optic. So right now the Optic is fully charged, and if it's charging, this little charging light, whenever you put it on there, will start blinking, and then it'll tell you what level the battery is. Right now it's fully charged, but whenever I did that initially on the first one, I would, and I knew the Optic was not fully charged, because whenever you push this button in, right now it's green. It was yellow initially, and then eventually it turned red, and because that's a battery level indicator on the side, which is, you know, a cool feature. But whenever you put this thing on here, if I put it on correctly, it should, you know, show you the battery level. And it was saying that this Optic, not this model specifically, but the other Olight X that I had, it was saying that that one was fully charged, but the side was, you know, still flashing yellow and then eventually red. So I assume the internal battery would not charge. I don't know why this wouldn't connect and give me an accurate reading. That was kind of weird. So something internally with the whole charging and the little magnetic plate or whatever on the inside was not working with that one. So again, I don't know what that was or what was wrong with it specifically. I sent it back to Olight. You know, hopefully I hear from them to see what the issue was. It comes with 4 little boxes that are like this. They're all connected to each other, so that's kind of neat. They do slide apart, so if you want to, you can, you know, take them apart like that. But in here, in this one specifically, it comes with these different screws, and it comes with 2 different lengths for all of them, and for this one it just comes with 1. But you can see there's all the lengths for them all. I believe I used the shorter of the screws for all of these, so, but it does come with longer ones. That is one nice thing that I will say that Olight got right, that Holosun did not. So on the Holosuns, if you watch my review on this EPS carry specifically, it does come with a little adapter plate in order to work on a RMSC, I believe is the cut for these. And then this one is a K footprint, so it's basically an adapter. And all it does is just the screw holes line up, and it just basically makes a spacer where it fits in. But the screws on the Holosuns were too long. The one on the extractor side over here, it goes into the channel where this extractor rod or plunger rod, whatever you want to call it, goes. So whenever you put the screw down, if you put it too far down in, it will actually press on this rod, not allowing the extractor to move, so which means you're going to have malfunctions. The Olights on both of these did not have that problem. The screw length was good and did not interfere with those screws, unlike the Holosun. So kudos to Osight for that. And also, I'll mention this before I get to the range testing of this, is I do not like the internal batteries of these things and the chargers. I'm old school, I'm old fashioned, I'm an old 95-year-old man at heart, but I prefer the ability to just swap out a battery if it dies or it starts getting low, versus something like this where you have to rely on a battery pack to put on there, which I don't have a problem with the battery pack itself, or really an internal chargeable battery. Like, I use rechargeable batteries all the time. The problem is it's not user serviceable. I can't get the internal battery out of here and swap it with another one. If something breaks, you have to send it to Osight to get it warranty or to get it fixed, and I don't like that. Yes, you should have backup iron sights, and yes, both of these actually allow for a co-witness of your iron sights. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I can use my iron sights on this Glock. Now, granted, there are some built into this one, but it's nice being able to use just standard Glock sights. And I would turn around these rear sights, just FYI, you know, to make them black out, but that's just me. All right, I have just zeroed this Osight X in. Here is my group right here. That was me, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4. This is only about 12, 13 yards, something like that. And I don't care, that's perfectly centered. I'm just trying to get a good group and then to test it again.
Let's take this Osight X and I'm going to rack it against this table right here using just the front of the Optic and see if we can cause it to lose 0. All right, there's 15. You can see all the nice little indentations in the wood. The front, I don't know if you can see it on there, doesn't appear to be messed up. The glass is recessed in there, so that didn't scratch the glass at all. Some optics, the glass sticks out. Not a problem with this one. That was a good trigger pull. Felt like a good trigger pull. That one might have been a little bit low. Good trigger pull. Good trigger pull. Those felt like good trigger pulls too. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It does look like the dot shifted slightly left based on where the iron sights are. So, but that should make me shoot to the right, not to the left. So this was my first group up here, my initial 0, and then I shot another group. They were here, and then that was a flyer. I'm not sure. Could have been me. I don't think it was it, but that could have been me. Now the next group after that, it kind of shifted up a little bit. I know one of these was me. The other 3, 4 are right there. So one, I think that's 3. Where's the 4th? Where's the 5th one? Oh, the 5th one's right there. I lied. One of those was low, and I know that was not me. So take that for what you will. And then the last one, more or less went up again. So it seems, I don't know, it's holding 0. I don't want to say it's me, but I also don't want to say it's the Optic. Let's rack it again. And we'll load up a few more rounds. It's not holding 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, here was my, let's see if you can see all of these on camera. You can. So my initial 0 before I hit it the first time, right here. Then my second time I shot it after racking it a bunch, it went down here. Then it settled back to where it was. So, which is, you know, about here again. And then the next group here again. So it returned back to 0. So now, after shooting it and racking it 15 times again, now it shifted over to the right. Now I'm just going to circle this and then mark them. So let's go shoot it one more time and see if it did the same thing last time where it returned. You can see that dot is visibly off to the left just a little bit. So there's center, I think. It's really hard to see this in the camera. Yeah, you can tell like right there. It's off to the left, which means you had to pull a little bit to the right, which would explain the shots on the right. You have one that was probably the one that I jerked. The rest of them are all still in the same 0. So it seems to, under normal recoil, hold 0 fine, but if you're to rack it against something, or if it takes a drop or anything like that, I don't think it's going to retain 0. You won't be able to see it through here, but the dot now is moved off to the right. I just racked it again against the table about 10 times just to kind of see what would happen, and now the dot is visibly off to the right. So, all right, maybe it's just my example. I don't know if you can see me or not, but I just shot about 10, 15 rounds more out of here, and the 0 shifted again just under regular recoil. And it's not even back to where the 0 was. It's in a completely new location. So it doesn't hold 0. All right, so now let's test the Osight S. This is their RMSC footprint, fully enclosed optic. That's the 0 kind of down here, around in this area. Considering how terrible that trigger is, and again, that trigger is better than it used to be, but it's not great. I would say it's holding 0 roughly here, here, and here-ish, and all the little left ones are me, and that one was 100% me. I called that one. So I'm going to say it's held 0, and it's going to hold 0 right about here is where it's zeroed at. So let's rack it a few times and then fire at the bottom circle down there and see what happens. So let's rack it a bunch of times against here. We'll start off down here just so we're consistent. All right. Sound like a pretty decent trigger pull. Pretty good trigger pull. Good trigger pull. Definitely good trigger pull. That one maybe slightly to the right. I'm going to say that has retained 0. It did not shift 0 wildly. Maybe it went like a half an inch to an inch high. The group overall did versus down here, it's just slightly low. So I don't think the Optic lost 0 on that. I'm going to do that test again and then try it again, see what happens. All right, let's do this one more time. Again, just got to rack about 15 times. And let's see what the front looks like. I don't know if you can see that on there. Yeah, you can. The finish actually looks fine. The glass does not look like it was messed up at all. So, all right. Maybe it didn't. I don't want to say it's perfectly zeroed because it is, and I did call it, it is slightly more to the right, about an inch, versus where it was over here and over here. The general pattern was over to the right. Now the gun's heating up, could have something to do with it. Some of these rounds are slightly on the right, but it is, I would say, higher consistently than these were. Still basically the same spot. I think it's just I'm a bad shooter with that gun, honestly. The group went from here-ish over to the right. You know, what is that? Roughly an inch, something like that. Inch, maybe inch and a half at what, 12, 13 yards, somewhere around there. So they're about here. So if that's a big deal to you after you racket it, that's up to you. All right, and this is going to show you as a comparison the accuracy you can get with the Holosun EPS carry with that Glock 43X. That was me and that was me. The rest of these are, you know, roughly 2 inches at this distance. So that's the groups I was getting with the Osight S is consistent with that. So it's 100% the gun. Now, whenever I was really able to cinch down there, whenever the wind stopped blowing, I wasn't cold and all the perfect conditions were right, I was able to stack, you know, rounds right next to each other. But these were the same shooting conditions as all the Olight stuff, with the S specifically. So I think that Olight retained 0. I just want to verify once I remounted my Holosun EPS carry on my Glock 43X just to make sure that it was me and the gun, not the Optic. And it seems like it was. So initially, at the range, the Osight X was holding 0, and then it just completely lost 0 whenever I was racking against the table. And then it also lost 0 just under regular use and shooting. So this one does not hold 0. I don't know if there's something wrong with this one specifically, or if that's a problem with the design in general. But with this specific model, with this specific example, it did not hold 0. The Osight S, the small one that's an enclosed optic, actually did really, really well. I like this optic quite a bit. It's hard to tell on the range footage, but you're gonna have to decide for yourself whether or not it retains 0. I would say it retained 0. But it did move a little bit, and it was consistently just, I think, high right, if I remember correctly, by like an inch, which at 12 yards, an inch with a pistol, you know, is that enough of a difference to really matter? You know, because at 25 yards, that'd be what, you know, maybe 2 inches or something like that. Is that a big deal to you? Again, a lot of that was because of the pistol itself. It's hard to be accurate with that gun. If you put this on a full size, you know, it might do a little bit better. But in my mind, this one actually held 0, and I was very rough on this one. I was actually rougher on this one than I was on this one. And this one held 0 just fine, and it especially held 0 fine whenever I wasn't racking it against wood, you know, being rough on the thing. So if you don't plan on being rough on your optics, this is, you know, probably a good choice. And for those of you wondering, this is a Zev cut style armor slide, and I've had optics on here before, and you can put it on there. It's a little bit loose, but not as bad as other optics that I've had before that held 0 just fine under the same test. So I don't think it was shifting left and right. And the witness marks on the screws were in the exact same position. And I did look, you can see this little gap in between the optic and the slide on the front. It was consistent because you can get it to rotate either way. It was consistent like that the entire time I was shooting because I was checking that. So the optic itself was not shifting in this mount. It was the actual internals of this that were shifting. So again, I would not recommend this one at this time. However, this one,
for the price, because the Holosun EPS carry is around $350 if I remember correctly for their, you know, their cheap model. This one, on the other hand, its MSRP is going to be, I think, $249, something like that. And on sale, you know, discount prices or actual, you know, street value, it'll probably be less than that, you know, maybe 225, 200, somewhere in there. So for not quite half the price, but close to half the price, this is a solid contender, I will say. Now, it's probably not as durable, just based on how thin the walls are around it. But again, as long as you're not planning on driving in nails or dropping your stuff all the time, you know, it's not necessarily a bad choice. Some of you don't mind the fact that, you know, if you drop it on concrete, it's going to break. Some of you say you never drop your guns. Okay, that's fine. Then maybe that's an Optic for you. I still prefer the Holosun compared to this, but if you are on a budget or you just can't fork out, you know, with tax and everything else, it's going to be close to $400 for the Holosun. If this is more in your price range, I don't think this is a bad choice. I think this is a viable option, and I will say, Osight, good job on this one. But I appreciate y'all watching this video. Hopefully you got something useful out of it. And again, I think this is a good product, or at least a very good version 1. I think there's some updates they can make to this. But as of right now, I would say this is a good choice if you want to buy something for a carry gun that you're not going to just, you know, be rough on and abuse. But if you appreciate this kind of content, like the video and subscribe to the channel. That helps a lot. Also, if you want to comment down below and start a fight with each other, you know, have at it. Feed that algorithm. But I appreciate y'all watching, and I hope you all have a good one.